widespread damage and flash floods from border to border, and unprecedented flooding in communities across northwest Iowa. On top of the 20 state disaster proclamations that I've issued, Iowa has also received 3 presidential disaster declarations. FEMA Administrator Criswell has visited twice, and FEMA's Region 7 team has been on the ground in impacted counties and communities for several weeks and probably will remain for quite some time. The combined scope of these disasters stretches across 2/3 of Iowa's 99 counties. More than 5,000 homes have been impacted, of which more than 2,000 are estimated to be destroyed, and we anticipate actually that these numbers could continue to grow. On top of the devastation to residential neighborhoods, business districts were also heavily impacted. You know, we had the opportunity to see this firsthand in Sioux Rapids, where the downtown district was largely destroyed. Almost every single business down there had been impacted, and most of them are unable to be repaired. And across the region, more than $130 million in damages to public infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and water treatment plants, has affected access and services in many communities. The disaster will continue to require a whole-of-government approach at every single level to ensure a full recovery, and that's what I intend to deliver. I've asked my cabinet to join me to signify not only my commitment as governor, but the collective commitment of my team. This will be a long-term recovery, and it's going to require many resources to help families rebuild, businesses reopen, and communities to come back stronger than before. And I'm here to tell you also that we're going to be here for the long haul. It's been nearly 3 weeks since the flooding began in northwest Iowa, and since then, state agencies, local officials, emergency managers have been working together in real team, managing the ongoing response efforts related to the cleanup and restoration of critical infrastructure. At the same time, we've been developing plans for the state's immediate and long-term recovery for one of the most urgent needs that we've heard at every single stop almost that we've been at, and that is housing. In a few minutes, I'm going to share more information about new state programs to address this need for not only temporary housing, but for plans to get permanent housing in place as soon as possible. But first, I'd like a few of my cabinet members to provide a brief update on the progress that's been made in northwest Iowa since the flood response began, and I'd like to begin with General Osborne with the Iowa National Guard. General?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. The Iowa National Guard is, of course, Iowans serving Iowans in response to the recent flooding here in the northwest part of the state. The Iowa National Guard has conducted a number of state active duty missions at the request of the governor and in close coordination with the Director Benson and his emergency management team, starting on 22 June and lasting through 4 July. Our first mission, probably our most highly visible mission, was a helicopter rescue of a gentleman in the Spencer area trapped in his car in high, fast-moving water. The flight crew and the aircraft came out of our medical evacuation detachment in Waterloo, was equipped with an external rescue hoist, which made this rescue possible. We also coordinated with the Nebraska National Guard. They had a air medevac aircraft 4 deployed into Sioux City in case it was needed in support of the operations on the 22nd and the 23rd in particularly. Starting on the afternoon of the 22nd, we deployed 10 high water or high clearance vehicles up into those impacted areas of northwest Iowa, and they were used to transport people, equipment, and supplies through high water affected areas. We've provided potable water storage in distribution in several towns in northwest Iowa, particularly Rock Valley, and that includes a water truck that we sent from Camp Dodge up into Rock Valley. Matter of fact, it's still there in support of the Rock Valley Fire Department in case they have a fire emergency. In coordination with the Department of Natural Resources and Department of Transportation, we relocated a number of 8-inch pumps up into the Milford-Okoboji area. We operated those pumps, sat on those pumps for a number of days, again in coordination with DNR and DOT. We activated several debris removal teams from our Air National Guard, both out of Des Moines and Sioux City. They worked tightly with Department of Transportation to remove debris in Sioux Rapids and Spencer. We provided some assistance in Rock Valley with emergency management planning as they started their transition towards recovery. And we also provided about 500 cots in a number of shelters up in that area, a lot of those still being used. In total, we activated 94 soldiers and airmen from across the state, and we work closely in cooperation with the Departments of Homeland Security, Transportation, Health and Human Services, Natural Resources, Public Safety, and the Governor's Office. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Marler. I'm the Director of the Department of Transportation. The DOT has been working closely with Homeland Security and the other cabinet agencies under the direction of the Governor in responding to the disaster emergency. We've also been involved in many different activities, from moving pumps, sandbags, and cots, to hauling water, providing traffic barricades, and delivering DSNAP equipment. This morning, I would like to touch upon a few key activities by DOT to support the communities of northwestern Iowa. In Spencer, as you've heard, there were thousands of structures that were damaged in Spencer alone. As people sought to clear out damaged and destroyed goods and materials, it became necessary to coordinate their removal. In the last weekend of June, the DOT surged into Spencer, bringing 81 staff from DOT garages across the state, dozens of tandem axle dump trucks, in total 96 pieces of equipment. We worked closely with the Air National Guard to remove damaged and destroyed materials, hauling them to the Clay County Fairgrounds. In total, we hauled off 2,880 loads, including 1,479 large appliances. These record floods also had a significant impact on roads and bridges. We logged 73 closures of primary system roads and bridges from the flooding, and since that time, we've had 2 teams of bridge inspectors, one out of Atlantic, one out of Cherokee, as well as our district staff, working continuously to inspect these bridges, structures, pavements, shoulders, and other infrastructure. We've completed 29 bridge inspections, and only 2 bridges remain closed at this time. US 18 bridge west of Spencer remains closed due to severe damage. At this particular bridge, the guardrail posts, were dangling in midair because the embankment literally washed away. We also have the bridge over the Big Sioux River at Akron still closed. We continue to coordinate with South Dakota and Nebraska on border bridges and connecting routes. One other key activity I'd like to mention this morning is the 511 system. Many of our customers have shared how they would like to see their county roads in 511, along with the closures of the state roads that you normally find there. So we work closely with the County Engineer Service Bureau and our 511 staff and vendor, and we were able to incorporate the county data feed into the state 511 system. The benefit of this is a single source where customers can find both state and local road closures for those counties that participate in this program with the County Engineer Service Bureau. I'm pleased to report that the closures are now shown across the 511 platform, which includes not only the web page but also the mobile app. In these and many other ways, the DOT is proud to support the communities of Northwest Iowa, and we are with you until the job is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marler. Good morning. I'm Mackenzie Snow, Director of the Iowa Department of Education. Thriving communities across Iowa start and grow in our schools. And since these disasters first occurred, the Iowa Department of Education has been working to support school leaders in restoring the learning environment and returning to rigorous instruction. In particular, the Rock Valley and Spencer Community School Districts and Rock Valley Christian School sustained extensive damage to their school buildings and grounds, including lost curriculum and instructional items, electronic learning devices, school buses and vans, CTE program equipment, and educational enrichment spaces and materials that range from playgrounds and gyms to libraries to band rooms. Alongside superintendents and school leaders in Rock Valley and Spencer, we met dedicated teachers and staff, members of local school boards and the state legislature, and numerous volunteers all working together to best support the school community. We discussed the progress that has been made and the immediate and longer-term needs of disaster-impacted school communities. We are in the process of securing
Hey guys, Jacqueline Fernandez here at the Alert Center. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with that live video for you. If you're just joining us, Governor Kim Reynolds was chatting a little bit about the disaster recovery update from those historic floods. She's also said to announce new state programs. We don't have that information just yet because, as you just saw, that video went down, unfortunately. But Governor Kim Reynolds started chatting this afternoon, so I can kind of take you on a recap of what we did learn. She talked about the combined scope. 2/3 of Iowa counties were affected. More than 2,000 homes were destroyed. She did say likely a lot more than that, and they're kind of still putting the pieces together. She did mention a lot of business districts, unfortunately, were impacted, especially in Sioux Rapids, where she mentioned, just the buildings. It just kind of looked like a bomb shelter, if you will. Just when the flooding came through, a lot of the buildings no longer there. A lot of the buildings need to be rebuilt, etc. She mentioned $130,000 in roads and bridges. That's the amount of money that is needed to repair that infrastructure. She did insure everyone, so here's kind of the silver lining that, this is going to be a full recovery effort, and she says that she and everyone on her cabinet are in it for the long haul, so that's a good thing there to take note of. It's been nearly 3 weeks since the flooding, and again, she was going to chat about a new state program. She did mention housing was a huge topic for the people of Iowa, so permanent housing as well as temporary housing. But as I mentioned before I get started here, unfortunately we had a technical difficulty, and we aren't sure if she's chatting about that yet. I am keeping my eye on that feed though to make sure that we're not missing anything. If it does work, then I'll head back in there. Now, we also heard from several of her cabinet directors. So General Osborne with the Iowa National Guard, he came up and he was talking about different missions. He said their number one mission that he mentioned was a major helicopter rescue in Spencer. He said a man was trapped in a car in those floodwaters, and they were able to successfully snag him, get him out of the danger, and bring him to safety. So a huge thank you for that. He also talked about distributing water, using a specific water truck to make sure that different communities, it's ironic, right? I mean, you have all this water all around you, and yet not safe drinking water. So that's something that he did put into play. It does appear that, I think I spoke too soon. The feed is, nope, I guess we're still waiting for that signal. As I mentioned, keeping an eye on that to make sure that we don't miss anything should Governor Reynolds discuss some new and upcoming state programs for us, likely about housing. Meantime, heading back to that mission, he did mention the DNR and DOT were operating pumps. They were on debris removal teams, and we're definitely helping out with that effort. It appears this is working now, so I'm just going to click back in, and we'll go from there. Let's see here. Take a listen in.
Industries, they've aided in that recovery. Finally, I would just simply note that we are available to continue to provide that assistance. We encourage consumers that may be having issues and concerns with regards to that coverage to contact us. They can come to the Iowa Insurance Division for that assistance, either by telephone or online assistance. Again, be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Oman. I'm Kelly Garcia. I'm the director of the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. And first, I just want to thank Governor Reynolds. I think you can see her vision around alignment, working in real time, and I know I can see it every day in our own agency response with now a lifespan and health and human services approach to everything we do. I'm going to start by giving you an update on Disaster SNAP. We call it DSNAP. You just heard Director Marler mention that there were a variety of supplies delivered to the 5 communities. We are actively deploying Disaster SNAP in real time. We have staff on the ground, and for the first time, we have a virtual option as well. For residents that don't want to travel, we have a phone line available. This work is happening in the first 5 counties, and stay tuned because we will be announcing new counties in both Cherokee, locations in Cherokee at our own MHI facility, as well as Woodbury County here in the coming days, starting next week, we believe. We have information available on our own website, also located, of course, on Homeland Security's website, as well as all social media profiles for all of the detail around SNAP locations and hours. We've served a total of 400 families thus far, and so we expect many more in the coming days, and we'll be operating through the weekend to make sure that we reach all families. Let's now turn our focus to Volunteer Iowa, such a gem of a program that's now with Health and Human Services and absolutely showcasing the spirit of dedicated Iowans to help communities. Our Volunteer Iowa program coordinated across 11 counties and reception centers in all flood-affected communities, and so far we've had 1,000 people volunteer in response to support cleanup efforts across Iowa, and we've had individuals come from a national perspective as well. This shows the true spirit of giving Iowans. Volunteer Iowa, along with Iowa Volunteer and Donations Management Team, have worked with local emergency managers and coordinated volunteer and donation response across all of the flood and tornado affected communities. Volunteer Iowa mobilized AmeriCorps volunteers as well, serving across Iowa in flood recovery efforts. So Habitat for Humanity, mobile response teams, our Refugee and Immigrant Voices in Action, and Iowa Community Corps, which is a new public health AmeriCorps program, again showing alignment work in our agency. AmeriCorps members from across the country have been deployed to Northwest Iowa. We have 50 on the ground right now, and we expect many hundreds more over the next 60 to 90 days, a really incredible attribute. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to talk to you about disaster behavioral health. Our disaster behavioral response team, referred to as DBART, and you may know it branded as Project Recovery Iowa, are also on the ground in Northwest Iowa. So far, we've counseled more than 100 individuals in the flood recovery zone, but we expect many more in the coming months, and I'll talk to you about why. In our tornado-affected communities, we served more than 400 families, and we will see that there will be an ongoing need in the coming months. That's the space where we won't leave until the work is done. Our team provides short-term crisis counseling services for those in need. We provide translation services for those with language barriers, which has been an increasing need in the Northwest Iowa communities. And we even assist with other navigation efforts, helping secure transportation or food resources, and working with other local agencies to support community needs. Most people will focus on physical damage first. That's absolutely understandable. And so after those effects are finished, we turn to the behavioral health needs that will be the next focus for individuals who have lost everything. They will see their lives changed in a really significant way, and that's where our team comes into play. The response for our DBART team, they were there on the ground in Perry, they were there on the ground in Greenfield, and we will stay until our communities have recovered. The Project Recovery team will be on the ground for weeks and then months to come, because the mental health needs often recognized or brought to the forefront really do come when that cleanup is done. For more information, please visit our disaster recovery resource pages on our Iowa HHS website, also on Homeland Security's website. Our dedicated website is hhs.iowa.gov/disaster. And remember that if you or a loved one find yourself in crisis, 988 is only one phone call away. Governor, thank you so much for the opportunity to give an update. Appreciate it.
Director. I want to just thank my team, not only those that you've just heard from, but every one of them that are up here today to say how grateful I am for their response and the time that they put into serving Iowas would just be an understatement. It's been incredible to watch this team in action. Each agency will play a role in the state's recovery, serving Iowans in unique ways and helping them really continue to navigate this extremely difficult situation. So just a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for everything that you've done and will continue to do to help those Iowans that have been impacted not only recover, but to help restore their livelihood in the communities that they call home. So just extremely grateful and extremely proud of this team that's standing behind me. You know, as I mentioned earlier, this recovery will demand an all of government approach, including the legislature. So last week, I spoke with Speaker Grassley as well as Majority Leader Whitber to brief them on the programs that I'm going to be announcing today and to give them an update of much of what you've just heard. They were supportive, and I just want to underscore that they continue to play a significant role in Iowa's recovery. You know, they've also heard from many of their representatives and senators whose districts have been impacted, and I've met with many of the legislators as I've visited the communities over the last several weeks, and we will continue to work together as a team on behalf of Iowans. So again, very grateful for their continued support as well. You know, we've all seen the photos of the neighborhoods that have been leveled, of towns completely underwater, and they're heartbreaking. To see it firsthand is unforgettable. In the hours after the tornadoes hit, I was on the ground in Minden and Greenfield, and when the flooding started, my team and I toured northwest Iowa by helicopter to survey the damage when travel on the ground was impossible. What I saw as we flew over rural northwest Iowa were farms that were completely submerged, homes, grain bins, equipment, underwater, gone. So I want to start this morning by reassuring our Iowa farm families that the state stands with them as well. You know, more than 70 farmsteads were damaged in Shelby County alone during April's tornadoes. At that time, we worked with Homeland Security. We got the disaster declaration in place. I contacted Secretary Vilsack at USDA to request assistance for Iowa farmers through their programs. Shortly after, federal loans and other programs were made available. I want to take this opportunity again to thank our federal delegation as well as Secretary Naig for their outreach in really helping us continue to encourage Secretary Vilsack to stand up these programs, which they did. But you know, what I heard in the weeks that followed was that the interest rates for many of the USDA loans were often much higher than what farmers could get from their local banks and their local lenders. And another component of this that was discouraging, I think, for the farmers that I had outreach with was that the USDA loans didn't offer the same benefits as the Small Business Administrative loans, which farmers for some reason don't qualify because they're not considered a business. So today we're going to bring some parity to farmers by creating the Disaster Recovery Farm Interest Program. And so this program actually buys down interest rates by reimbursing interest payments up to $50,000 per household over 12 months on commercial loans farmers will use to repair damage on insured property. The program will be managed by the Iowa Finance Authority, and I'm pleased to announce that we will be launching that program today. Farmers can apply online now at iowagrants.gov. So again, I just want to give a shout out to Debbie's team, my team. Lily, thanks for all your work in outreach to the farmers that were impacted, Homeland Security, well, everybody. See, that's what happens when you start naming it. This is a team effect here, team effort. But that stood up today, and hopefully we can start to provide some certainty to farmers that are trying to move forward. As I mentioned earlier, the severe weather events since April have impacted more than 5,000 homes. More than 2,000 homes are estimated to be completely destroyed or majorly damaged. In northwest Iowa, many homeowners and renters, they didn't have flood insurance because their home was not located in a floodplain. I spoke with families that had lost everything. They were overwhelmed. They were grief-stricken just with the uncertainty, not knowing where to go, what was next, what do I do? And I heard those same concerns and just that same grief-stricken, overwhelmed uncertainty from families that had lost their homes due to the tornadoes. The need is staggering and it's immediate. And that's why today I'm proud again with the help of my team to announce some state programs to help homeowners in a variety of situations. So first thing we need to do is to provide temporary housing as soon as possible so that individuals and families can remain in their communities. I heard that over and over. I come from rural Iowa. We want to do everything we can to drive growth and prosperity to bring people to our communities. And so when you're impacted with devastation like this, you don't want to lose anybody. And most importantly, they want to provide what these individuals need. So, you know, we want to do what we can so that they can remain in their communities while they rebuild or repair their homes. After speaking with the FEMA Administrator Criswell, we were actually touring some of the damage, I think, in Spencer. She was talking about a program that they had offered in some of the southern states, Florida and Louisiana, for those states that had been impacted by hurricanes, and about maybe having that be a possible solution for Iowa. Well, we jumped on it. You know, it had never been done before, but we thought this is something that might work. My team immediately started working, John's team especially, he's going to talk about it in a minute, started working with not only FEMA to get all of the requirements in place, but also reaching out to these states that had actually utilized the program. We stood it up in less than 2 weeks. I've submitted it, the state's first ever application to FEMA for a disaster recovery temporary housing program. So we like to make these as long as we can so that they're hard to remember. It's a temporary housing program for Iowans who live in counties that are included in the Presidential Disaster Declaration. The program will provide temporary housing at no cost in their communities while they work toward a permanent housing solution. Housing units will vary, and they will include anything from hotels, RVs, travel trailers, and modular homes. And here to provide really additional details and kind of walk through how they stood up this program is Director Benson of Homeland Security, Emergency and Management. And him and his team get to manage all of us as well as all of the state in really responding to the needs of Iowans that have been impacted by the multiple disasters. John?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you to the Cabinet team. As the Governor has correctly noted, I may lead it, but everybody behind me makes the engine move. So fantastic work that you've seen done so far, and it has been, I have to say, a long spring. So as the Governor mentioned, we are standing up a temporary housing program. This will be the first time we've ever done this in Iowa. For those of you that have been paying attention to hurricane states such as Louisiana, Florida, we're going to do the exact same thing. So I need to thank my compatriots in Florida and Louisiana for helping us get down this pathway so quickly. If you think about housing after a disaster, there are immediate needs that develop into long-term needs, and so we're looking to address some of those gaps. As the Governor mentioned, we're going to be working on the Disaster Recovery Temporary Housing Program, and the easiest way for me to think about that is a non-congregate sheltering effort. As she mentioned, it will run for a duration of 6 months, but it fits inside of a longer continuum. So if you think at the start of a disaster, people initially get into a congregate shelter to get out of harm's way. FEMA is now working on what they refer to temporary sheltering assistance, which is kind of the next step, getting them out of the shelter, perhaps into a hotel, any type of rental properties. The next step where we as a state will come in is on the non-congregate side of it, looking at placing them for 6 months, and as the Governor mentioned, travel trailers, RVs, possibly hotels, and even looking at mobile homes or modular homes as well. And then the next step after that, which we've already asked FEMA to start working on, is what is referred to as a FEMA Direct Housing Mission. And that will take us from 6 months out to 18 months. So 18 months after the disaster, we're developing and almost have in place an entire housing mission right now. The idea is that we work with those survivors, put them into a safe, sound situation where, as the Governor noted, they can work on their long-term housing Some of that will occur relatively quickly if they're refurnishing their home, have to refurbish it, a couple of months. Others will take longer. That's why we want to work on the long-term housing one with FEMA to get out to that 18th month. So when we do put this on the street, what will happen is you will notice a couple of things. We will have an entry portal, obviously. There will be a number to work with where survivors can get in touch. Our disaster case advocates or managers on the field will also be working with them. For the survivor that is interested in participating in the program, let's talk a little bit about qualifications. The initial qualification right up front is it has to be in a FEMA individual assistance designated county, and ideally any of the 3 disasters. So we're still adding more as we go along with the flood. So please pay attention to that on our website. Also, you'll find that on disasterrecovery.iowa.gov. I get that right? Okay, thank you. Those numbers are those additions are always happening. That's kind of the first step. The second one, and I want to take a chance to really encourage people to apply. One of the things you will notice, and in particular we've seen this in Northwest Iowa, is that can-do, I don't need help attitude. If you are of that thought process, I would like to discourage you from that thought process, and please apply, because then you become a known quantity to us, and that's how we can help you through not only the housing, if you have a housing challenge, but other things that may arise during the disaster to support you as you go through the recovery. So first part is you have to be an applicant inside of the FEMA IA program. It has to be your primary residence. It has to be presently not habitable. And then we're going to work with you in the city to anticipate what's your anticipated duration you're going to be out of that house. Is it just for a couple of months, or do you think it's going to be a longer term issue? So we're going to work through all of that. Now let's walk that forward and say a person or a family has qualified. So we will place them. And we'll be looking at, for example, if we're using travel trailers, we will be looking at campgrounds. There may be in the situation where we may even be able to place it on the personal property, private property. We would be looking, if we're looking at mobile home units, are we going to be looking at going into mobile home parks that we can utilize right away? All of those things figure into the equation. So for their survivor, they're working on their long-term solution. And that's part of the requirement is being in there is they have to demonstrate progress. We want to put them in a safe environment, but our expectation is that they're moving towards solving their long-term housing solution. As the governor has noted, we want to get them in there, get them safe, get them to their long-term solution, and then they exit the program and they go on. That's our ultimate goal. So the only cost we're actually asking people to cover, as Governor noted, the facility will be provided free of charge. We're just asking for utility. And that's the other reason why you need to apply to FEMA IA is because those utility costs can be covered by the FEMA IA programs. So we put it together that way. The other part that goes along with this is obviously we're going to be coordinating a lot with that disaster survivor, but we'll also be coordinating with local government. They're going to help us to assess the need that they know of because we have information. They're going to have information on survivor situation. We're going to put it all together and come up with a cohesive solution. But they'll also be able to help us with local knowledge in terms of what they have to be able to support this mission. So as I mentioned, we'll work with them. We get that figured out. We have the application portal out. We'll obviously have a contact center because you're going to have individuals in state-owned property that, let's be honest, something will go wrong. Something's going to break. It's got to get fixed. We put that under our umbrella, so we take care of the maintenance for those survivors as well. Them develop that long-term housing solution, because if you were to ask any survivor right now, what's a plan to get to long-term housing, they would not have an idea. We're going to help them get to that point. And then obviously we're going to do some wraparound work with them as well. So what can we do to make them comfortable? What can we help to get them back to living their life in a normal process? It's really, as the governor has correctly noted, it is a whole of government effort. It starts with local government, it runs through us, and it also involves FEMA. So it's everybody focused on helping that survivor. Now there are additional things going on too, because as the governor noted, I can't remember the number of proclamations you've done. It's a lot. So there are other things going on in the state too that are not presently under a presidential disaster declaration. The state does have help there as well. I just want to reiterate that we do have the State Individual Assistance Grant Program, which is available to folks that are under the governor's emergency proclamation and not under a FEMA major disaster declaration. But that grant program can also help people repair their homes, think about repair to their housing, if they've got food insecurity issues they need to be working through, personal property. If it happened prior to July 1, the maximum grant is $5,000. The legislature changed it after July 1, so any after that now have access to $7,000. As I mentioned before, all of the counties that are under some type of presidential, we're still considering other counties. That process is not done by any stretch of the imagination. Also, through that process, you can get access to disaster case advocacy, as we describe it. That is operated by the community action agencies. There is no qualification requirement for that. If you need help navigating through a disaster, even state level, federal level, that's what they're there for. We are going to be actually increasing the number of people we put on the ground to support that because we have a widespread need across the entirety of the state. The last thing I want to touch on is our relationships with local governments. So as also part of the FEMA program, we have activated what they refer to as public assistance to help local governments and certain private nonprofits repair, recover from this disaster. So you're talking about repair of infrastructure, so think about secondary roads being blown out, water, wastewater treatment facilities being damaged. Those all need to come back online. How does that work? What about all of the emergency work? We can help fund that through FEMA as well. So all of the sandbagging efforts, the flood fighting efforts, the pumping, all of you saw there's costs associated with that. Small city, even county budgets can't absorb those costs, so those FEMA programs help them recover. And obviously the big one, which Director Marler, the General's team, has helped support, has been the removal of debris related to homes being destroyed, and also, as Scott correctly noted, the loss of personal items. You know, as the governor saw, when you would drive around towns, unfortunately, you would see just personal stuff, and that's somebody's life that unfortunately is gone. So we want to help the cities recover from that. I want to say one thing. To my staff, thank you. It has been a long 3 months for my people, but they have exceeded my expectations. The governor has challenged us, and we have responded. So, the last thing I want to leave you with is how does the survivor access all of this stuff? Very simple. If you're looking on the federal side of it, disasterassistance.gov. I'll be honest, it's not the easiest website in the world, but it's a federal website, so what do you expect? But they also have an 800 number, 800-621-3362. That becomes a primary entry point for their survivors. On our side of the equation, it's a much nicer website, disasterrecovery.iowa.gov. So as Kelly was mentioning, we have links to all of the things that her team is doing. We have links to 511, Department of Education, the things they're doing. If you can remember a single entry point, disasterrecovery.iowa.gov, that'll help you get started. So thank you, Governor.
And I'll just underscore again, John, just thank you. I have pushed and pushed and pushed, and you and your team have responded at every turn. I mean, honestly, they stood this up in 2 weeks. That's crazy, just crazy. And we have been in constant contact with FEMA Administrator Criswell. I said, it's there. Thank you for the idea. We did it in 2 weeks. We need it turned around quickly. Congressman Feenstra has been working with Secretary Mayorkas. So, I mean, just everybody is pushing at every single angle, and we're really hoping, you know, hopefully we'll get a response to that sooner rather than later. But, you know, and this was a response that we heard from local governments. We've been working tirelessly with them, and they are just dealing with so much. And so we talked about this program, and we said, you know, maybe this is something we could stand up. And they asked if we could maybe manage it. So on top of just standing it up, John's team is going to take that off their plate and continue to work with them. But the state will be managing all of this, and then we will be reimbursed from FEMA. So it's just one less thing that they have to do. Another thing that John's team and this team are providing for these local governments is, you know, just a financial consultant that they can consult with to make sure that they're filling out the paperwork accurately, to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's so that it doesn't get, you know, scooped back, you know, because they didn't fill out the paperwork accurately. They want to do it right, and they ask if we could provide some resources to make sure that they are. the other thing that this team, my team, has put together, you know, there's a different bucket for everything. It's overwhelming for me, and I'm not living in that disaster every single day. And so we are trying to do as many one-pagers as we can that can walk them through all the financial resources, where are the pots of money, do this one first, then this one, then this one. Again, because they need to be making informed decisions, because that might impact the dollars that they will be receiving going forward. And I mean, I could go on and on. So it's been, there's just, the communication, the coordination, again, is incredible. So again, I want to thank John and his team for the speed in which they set the program up, and just continuing to engage the impacted communities. We've talked to them at every step of the way to make sure that we're coordinating on what we're doing. And it really will help so many Iowans move forward and make those plans for the future, providing them the tools that are necessary for Iowans to make a full recovery and remain in their communities that have been their home. And many times I talked to one mom who said, you know, here's where my daughter and my grandkids live. My mom is across the street. We've been here our entire life, so generations of Iowans want to stay there, and we need to help make that happen. So temporary housing provides a critical short-term solution, but as I said earlier, we're in this for the long haul. So I'm also launching 2 programs to help communities build new homes and assist with the cost of rehabbing some of the damaged ones. The first program that we're going to talk about is the State Disaster Recovery New Housing Grant Program. This program will provide financial assistance for the development of housing for sale or for rent. Our goal, again, really is to keep the residents in their communities. The program, it's kind of mirrored off of the Workforce Housing Tax Credit Program, but the program will award experienced developers up to $1 million per project to build housing units in federally disaster declared communities, again, that qualify for FEMA's Individual Assistance Program. Developers must build at least 2 single-family homes or at least 1 multifamily building with 2 or more units or 2 upper-story units. Preference will be given to single-family homes, which will cost no more. It'll be capped at about $298,000. Duplexes and townhouses, townhouse-style developments will be capped at $242,000. All units must be for owner or rent-occupied permanent residents. We'll make an initial investment for this program of $10 million. That is, we're using the America Rescue Plan funding. That's how we're going to launch this program. The program, and that's how we'll launch the program, excuse me. And we've also, in the conversation that I had with the leaders, we've asked when the legislature comes back into session that they pass a bill that will make, that will apply retroactive and make the funding for this tax exempt when they return in January. So developers can apply online beginning July 15th at iowogrants.gov. And now I need to turn over here and just point to Director Durham to, again, stand up a program. We pushed and pushed and pushed and said we need it sooner, and Debbie said we'll do it, and she did it. And so I just, from the team, but just thank you again for getting this done. Then I asked her to do it one more time, so, but I really appreciate that as well. So additionally, and this is another program that we've activated. So this is the Disaster Recovery Housing Assistance Program. This is a lot. We're going to give you all a one-pager when we're done, so you actually have the details, but we want to try to get it out to the public so they know that these are coming, but we'll give you a lot of detail when we're done here. So it's the Disaster Recovery Housing Assisting Program, and it'll allow the state to move quickly to address unmet housing rehabilitation needs that are outside of the scope of insurance coverage. We also have a lot of underinsured. Pull that insurance coverage out every year. Take a look at it, take a look at the market, and make sure that you're adequately covered. And it will help with the, and then that's on top of FEMA housing assistance. It's a standing program. It was actually established by the legislature in 2021, but it had not been funded. So therefore, I've directed, thank you, Director Paulson, for making this happen, doing all the research, working with Director Mosman to make this happen, but I've directed a transfer of about $6.5 million in fiscal year 2025 funding to open the program up. The program provides eligible homeowners with up to $50,000 for disaster-affected homes suitable for repair. Again, Debbie wasn't sure we could get this one going. I was kind of wanting all of them to be launched at the same time, and she told me yesterday when we were in touring yesterday in 3 or 4 communities, I'd hardly sat down and you said we're going to be able to launch it. So that program will also be launched on July 15th. It's also at iowagrants.gov. And again, while the $6.5 million we think is a good start, so we can start meeting that immediate need, we're going to continue to work with the legislature on all of these programs next session to ensure that they are adequately funded, or if we need to, add some additional funds, we'll have that conversation in session. So in addition to the 3 programs that I've just outlined, we're also working to secure a variety of permanent housing that can be built and installed in communities as soon as possible. Homes for Iowa is a public-private partnership with our Iowa Prison Industries that trains incarcerated individuals in the building trades and helps reduce recidivism and truly benefits Iowans. The modular homes built in the program are sold to the public and then delivered and installed at the owner's property. We work a lot with communities across the state in locating where these homes go. Since the beginning of the program in 2019, a total of 91 homes have been built and sold. I don't think he's back there. No, she had a family member that wasn't. Have been built and sold, and Homes for Iowa currently has 5 new homes on their building schedule, which we have reserved for disaster-affected communities wanting to expedite their rebuilding efforts. So these homes are 1,200 square feet. They're 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. The cost of the home is $95,000, and it will be ready for delivery in the next 45 to 120 days. So we're going to take advantage of that, and then that'll be an asset that we can continue to use going forward for a whole host of reasons, not just for disaster communities. But communities that have been impacted by recent tornadoes and the flooding, they can go to homesforiowa.com to learn more about how the project works and how to buy a home. Also, Habitat for Humanity is actively involved in disaster-affected communities across Iowa. In Minden, the Habitat of Council Bluffs is working with donors, city and county leaders, local nonprofits, and developers to start the rebuilding process. The planning is underway to support new housing, home repair, support for small businesses, and more, with the goal of building 5 homes in the community this year alone. In Northwest Iowa, Habitat for Humanity's mobile response team is joining Volunteer Iowa on an active mission that's coordinated by AmeriCorps. The crews will be on the ground starting today for the next 3 months, gutting and removing material from homes that are in the impacted counties across the area. So Habitat for Humanity of Iowa is really actively recruiting people to join in on the disaster and be a part of the disaster response team. So if you're interested in helping out or you want to participate in some way, go to iowahabitat.org. Finally, I want to just provide a brief update on disaster recovery progress in the Okoboji area. As we all know, the Iowa Great Lakes region is a favorite summertime destination and a really important economic asset to our state. As soon as the flooding began on June 21st, the City Council reached out with 2 immediate requests. The first was for the Army Corps of Engineers to assist with helping reduce the water levels and breaching the culverts, just to take a look at what they could do to bring the water down. Through John, I requested an expedited assistance, and Kayla, Director Lyon, certainly was involved in all of this. That same day for Dickinson County and the Lakes area, and by the next day, the Corps was on site to help assist and meet with local officials. So requested, asked in the same day, and on the next day they were actually on site working with local officials to start to address some of their concerns. The city has also asked for an expedited permit for the Lower Gar outlet, and the DNR has been working diligently with them and the team. They're ready to approve the permit as soon as they receive some outstanding information from the county. We sat down with them last night. We walked through what that information was, and so Director Lyon is working very closely with the county. We're going to follow up with the information that we're waiting on. We should have that hopefully shortly, and that'll be another box that we can check and move forward again. Additionally, Kayla and her team, the DNR, have been removing debris that impedes navigation on the lake, so we know that that's really important to get that dangerous material out of the way. And they continue to work with the city to just talk about what we do with some of the debris that's now along the shoreline. And finally, DNR Director Lyon visited the lake region. She's done this a couple weeks ago. Has visited the lake region to really survey the damage to the shoreline. And her team has completed an initial analysis. They've input the data into the GIS system. They're working with a contractor that they've located that's really has the expertise and has done this type of work in other states. And if you've got additional questions when we get to that part, Kayla will be happy to answer any of those. But really, because of what they were able to do, they'll provide a drone-generated 3D analysis will be conducted to provide a more complete picture of what the need is, and in addition to that, a cost analysis so that we can really begin to move forward and address something that they're really concerned about, and that's the erosion of the shoreline and especially the tow. I'm learning a lot, along the way, but that's why Kayla is our expertise and her team in that area. So that's a lot, and I hope it gives you just a small sample of what everyone has been working on since the tornadoes hit. It's really been less than probably 3 months, I guess. And John said it best, it is local, it is state, and it is federal. And it is everybody coming together and then the communities. But I want Iowans to know that the needs of every disaster-impacted community matter. It matters to me, and it matters to the entire emergency response team. Over the last several weeks, I've visited many of these communities, some multiple times. My team and I have spoken with local mayors, city and county officials, and legislators from across the region. Director Benson and his team at Homeland Security, Emergency and Management have been working around the clock to support every community that's requested assistance. So has every one of my cabinet directors and their departments. In fact, I was in Spencer yesterday, Commissioner Baines, and they were so grateful for the communications system that you've been able to stand up so that they can continue to provide safety and communication with those in that county that has been impacted. Every time I see that official, he tells me how grateful he is for your team and just the backfill that you've responded. They're tired, and you've done that in all of the communities. Their members, their law enforcement officers have worked with local law enforcement officers not only to set up a communication site until they can get theirs reinstated, but just to provide some leave for our first responders that are working around the clock. So can't thank you enough for that. But the response team, it's bigger than what you see today. I mean, the emergency managers in these communities and their teams, they are the real heroes. As you've heard, their homes have been destroyed in a lot of these cases, and they are just on the ground working around the clock to make sure that their fellow citizen is being taken care of. And it is inspirational, beyond inspirational, to be on the ground and see this happening in every single Iowa community. Iowans are special people, and they continually look out for the needs of others before they take care of themselves. That's why I know we're going to continue to need your help, because they haven't even processed yet what they're dealing with their home and with their loss. But it is full steam ahead, and they have a mission, and they have their marching orders, and they're going to get it done. So they're doing everything they can to help their neighbors and bring their communities back. So we're making progress. We know that we still have a long ways to go, but we're determined to get there. And as I said at the beginning of today's press conference, my team and I are fully committed to Iowa's recovery. And with that, we'll open it up for questions. And it's for everybody. I've spoke a lot representing some of the agencies, but they could probably go into more detail if you have additional questions.
Governor, it might be too soon to ask this, but have you or your team already identified either large sections of town that will not be able to be rebuilt, where we've had kind of over the years certain sections of like Cedar Rapids and Wonder just kind of buy them out and park, or what do they do there?
Yeah, so we were in a couple of towns. I know it was Cherokee and maybe Spencer that had already had a buyout that really helped reduce, I think, the potential damage that they would have maybe incurred. I can tell you Rock Valley is looking at that. There is a process, Dave, that they have to go through, so they're in the early stages.
Is that mostly federal or not?
It's both. Well, John, you better speak, because it's both. But it is, you don't want people to change their mind. They're making decisions in the heat of the moment, and so you've got to just take all of that into account.
No, David, it is really it's a long-term effort because what you will see is immediately after disaster, survivor, I would dare use this, is in shock. I went away from my house. I just want out of this. Well, as they get into it, then they say, okay, I think I want to stay. So that has to be a conversation between the city, but as we will have federal dollars available to support that, so if a city does come forward, we've, as the governor noted, just in the city of Cherokee, I think over the course of years, we've probably the city's purchased 200 properties. That's 200 properties that were not flooded this time. But it has to be very thoughtful, and so we'll be working with the cities over the course of the next months and years on that.
And then the amount that we get for mitigation is based on the amount of FEMA dollars that come into the state. So we're still adding counties, and we're still responding. And so we want to make sure we have that total dollar amount so that we can come back in and do that. And then, you know, these communities have to offset, that's a loss of revenue. So they have to think about, do we have another development? What do we do going forward? So they're actually, I mean, we have communities that are working on that right now and thinking about how they adjust you know, their revenue and city budgets and local budgets and what that county and what that looks like moving forward.
School provides a normalcy for kids. Are you considering changing the school start date for some the schools that Director Snow mentioned? Will you allow temporary open enrollment to schools that neighbor, and then once the buildings in Spencer and Rock Valley are repaired, that the students could go back?
I think, well, and Director Snow, if you have anything to add to that, but I mean, they're focused on starting just as soon as they can. We're looking at temporary classrooms. Director Snow, as you heard in her comments, has done the outreach to see how many we have. We're working on another opportunity that, you know, I'm excited about. We don't have enough information on it yet, but just to provide that temporary classroom, just maybe another opportunity, because how many, I mean, you want to talk about the need? There was potentially quite a few.
Thank you. There are multiple school buildings impacted, and we are working directly with those superintendents and those local school leaders who are working tirelessly day in and day out to restore the learning environment, the in-person learning environment, as soon as possible, because as you mentioned, they know how important the sense of normalcy is and access to a rigorous instructional program in their community is, and we look forward to continuing to support them in their efforts.
Isn't it like 900 kids in
Rock Valley,
Rock Valley? But those are things, Kay, we absolutely won't rule out as we get closer. It's closer than you think. I mean, it's almost right around the corner. But honestly, their goal is to meet that need, to keep them there, to make sure they have a safe environment to learn in. You know, Mackenzie's working on curriculum and just some of the other equipment that we need to stand them up and make sure they're ready. So all of that is happening. So hopefully they'll be able to start on time and they'll be in their community.
I wanted to build on Dave's question and ask if the new state programs that you're announcing for housing have any kind of requirement of you know, whether they need to be built like outside of the floodplain that we've seen or anything like that. You know, so that as you
They
look
do,
at it,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, they do. Yeah.
On that note, I mean, obviously we've seen significant flooding here in Iowa before it's the first event, but we did see this time specific areas that were outside of the floodplain getting unprecedented flooding, right? And certainly that's part of the reason I think you mentioned that many didn't have flood insurance, right? So is there work to be done to kind of better understand how weather events are changing or affecting different areas that weren't typically a part of
Well, it's just cyclical. So, you know, we just came out of a 4-year drought.
Yeah.
So we had 4 years of severe drought,
Right.
which I can't even begin to think what this would have looked like if that hadn't been the case, because it absorbed a lot of water. So weather is cyclical. One of the things that, you know, has come up though, like what was the last community we were in?
Oh,
Sioux Rapids, I think. You know, that was outside the 100-year floodplain, you know, but they had a berm and a big pole came down and crushed it, you know, so just things like that happen with this much water rising that quickly. But one of the things that we've set up, this was implemented in July of 2023, is the just office of the levee safety, and so we have an established committee. The legislature has allocated funds to that, so as we start to look at wetlands and just what that management looks like with the flood, just different things that we'll be looking at. That office is also something that we'll be looking. There's a couple of communities that have reached out to us that has indicated they would be interested in taking a look at a holistic approach and see if there's other things that we need to do that could help protect some of these communities. So it's not, this is a long-term thing. It isn't something that will be solved tomorrow, but you look at all of that stuff and take all of that into account. I mean, as we do an after action review, and then based on what we've heard from communities, we'll start, addressing some of those concerns. But we do have, that has been set up, and there's funding through Homeland Security, I think Emergency Management, I think right now has about 20 million in it. So it has some funding that we can start to just take a look at some of those things.
Governor, during the legislative session, groups representing water engineers, water management agencies, architects, planners, cities, and counties opposed Senate File 455. And I'm wondering, as you tour some of these flood-ravaged communities, do you have any second thoughts about signing that bill that ban local governments from regulating stormwater and topsoil? And is that something looking forward that you would consider allowing local governments to take that step to possibly prevent future flooding?
Well, as I said yesterday, we were in two communities that was comprised of local government officials. One was Spencer and one was Okoboji. So, they want to take a look at working together and figuring out how we move forward. So it'll be a part of the conversation going forward. It can be a part of that committee that I just referenced, or what is it? Is it a committee, or what is it called?
This is an office.
Office. It is an office. Okay. So that's just part of the conversation that will continue moving forward.
I'm sorry, regulating stormwater is part of the conversation? Or
All of it. We'll look at all of it as we move forward. There's been a lot of water treatment plants that have been impacted. There has been a lot of infrastructure that has been impacted. So that can be part of the conversation going forward.
I'm sorry, I was asking about local government authority to regulate stormwater.
Yeah, I said, we will continue to have those conversations with local government, and to be honest, they're already happening. So it is happening. It happened just yesterday, and so those conversations will continue to happen. It is a give and take. They are certainly asking for a lot of help in a lot of other areas that we've been able to provide. So it's interesting. I worked 19 years in local government, and a lot of times we want local control until we don't want local control, and then we want the state to come in and
Hey guys, Jacqueline Fernandez here. So if you have been following along, a lot of course going on in today's presser. The basics today, the governor providing disaster recovery updates and announcing new programs. I'm going to kind of focus on the programs, if you will. So launching today, this is a good one. They created the Disaster Recovery Farm Interest Program, and so this will reimburse farmers on the interest payment on commercial loans to repair their property. So this is something that is major. It's the first of its kind in Iowa. It's managed by the Iowa Finance Authority. Again, as I mentioned, it's launching today. They have about $10 million in funding for this, and this is part of the American Rescue Plan funding. So that is something that's launching today that is new. Governor Kim Reynolds said, we don't want to forget about our Iowa farmers, and this program is specific to them. For more information on this program, you can go to iagrants.gov, and that is specific to farmers. A couple other new state programs she mentioned were to help homeowners, right? So she said about more than 5,000 homes were impacted by the flooding. 2,000 homes, she thinks maybe more, have been gutted or completely destroyed. So she created these state programs to help homeowners kind of move forward and stay in the community. So one of these programs provides temporary housing for these people that are impacted by the floods. Also keep in mind the tornadoes that impacted the area about a couple months ago. So a lot happening in Iowa. Hang in there, guys. So this provides temporary housing for people in their community who are working to repair their homes, okay? So this is a program that will last for about 6 months, and that time frame is pretty lucid at this point. That's what they're thinking to begin with, and then based off of individual people's situations, they may change that one way or another. This is an application to FEMA for disaster recovery efforts. So let's see. So FEMA has been involved in this effort with Governor Reynolds as well. This program, thankfully, at no cost to the homeowner, right? So if you want to, the biggest issue she mentioned is that a lot of people who lost their homes, they want to stay in the community in which they're rebuilding, right? So this program will allow you to do that if unfortunately you were one of those people or have a home or a business that were impacted by those floods. Also keep in mind people are still recovering from the tornado, so this might be something that could help tornado victims as well. She did mention the units available will vary. There'll be anything from hotels to travel trailers to modular homes, so it kind of depends on the availability there. For qualification information, there was a list that she mentioned. I didn't write all of those down for you though, but you can go to disasterrecovery.iowa.gov again to find out if you qualify, disasterrecovery.iowa.gov. Now this is for the, I think roughly 5,000 homeowners, give or take, whose properties are still available to be salvaged, so you're not building from the ground up, but eligible homeowners can receive up to $50,000 to repair your home. Again, you get all of that information at iowagrants.gov. So they're working with the legislature to make sure that this will be accurately funded, and that money is actually from the budget for next year that they've decided is very important for this year's recovery effort. So that's where that cash is coming from at this point. Now, sort of as a sidebar to this, Homes for Iowa, this is a program that was launched back in 2019. This is where they train incarcerated individuals on how to be construction workers, on how to build homes. These are modular homes that they're built in one place and then later installed in a separate area. So they actually have 5 new homes as part of this program that they're setting aside specifically for victims of the flooding, for victims of tornadoes in Iowa, as part of these disaster recovery, as part of this disaster recovery process, I should say. So these homes run about $95,000, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it's going to take 45 to 120 days to deliver these homes. Again, this program is helping out as part of the recovery effort. For more information on that, you can go to homesforiowa.com. So clearly a lot of things, a lot of different items were covered today. I'll be sure and put together a much shorter condensed version of what you know, a condensed version of what we're chatting about now. And in the interim, I just wanted to say thanks for joining us at the Alert Center. We'll have more information on this on our website as well. And of course, as you know, for this story and several other stories, you can always head to our website for more information. That's WOWT.com. Whew, a lot going on in Iowa today. All right, so if we head to our website, I'm just going to refresh this. We do have a breaking news banner up here. 6 First Alert weather days are coming. It's hot out there, guys, so make sure you do stay hydrated. Before we go, I'm going to take a quick look outside at our Blackstone camera. Looks kind of like muggy out there. You can see the desert dome in the distance. If you kind of squint, you can see the sunshine glimmering off the top of the dome there. But yeah, so today I guess is the last decently warm day that we'll have. But of course our meteorologists will have all the details for you. Taking another live look here at Charles Schwab Field. Oh my gosh, remember when this was packed with people? It seems like just a week ago or so with the CWS. Still a great shot there. Heading out to Children's, Nebraska. You can see not a cloud in the sky, but it does look kind of hazy out there. Still a better day than what we're expecting this weekend, unfortunately. But in the interim, thanks so much for joining me at the Alert Center, and thanks for staying tuned and paying attention to what's happening in Iowa with Governor Reynolds' press conference this afternoon. And of course, we'll have more updates for you on our website, WWT.com, as well as on our later broadcasts. Until then, thanks for joining me at the Alert Center, and we'll see you at our first broadcast live at 3 with Dave Zavolinsky. Have a good day.